Welcome to the first session of the international webinar on digital inequalities, organized by the Research Committee 26 on Human Rights of the International Political Science Association, the Human Rights Institute Gregorio Pérez Barba of the University Carlos III of Madrid, and the Department of International and Ecclesiastical Law and Philosophy of Law of the University Carlos III de Madrid, and academic unit der Technia. These are the organizers of this international webinar, and we are going to discuss in the first session about the digital inequalities from different approaches from people, academic scholars from different countries and with different international background. Our first speaker today is Rosa Maria Ricoy from the University of Vigo, and the title of her intervention is The Inequalities of Some Disruptive Technologies. Is your turn, Rosa.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Oscar, for giving me the opportunity to be with all of you here today. My name is Rosa Ricoy. I am professor at the University of Vigo and UNED in Spain. I would love to talk about the many aspects of the inequalities of some disruptive technologies. I have published and presented numerous papers on the use of artificial intelligence and algorithms in the administration of justice in a lot of countries. Discrimination that this type of technology produce, including the gender perspective, about the ethical dilemmas of autonomous cars, about freedom of expression or not through social media, social networks, and regulatory and judicial perspective in the Spanish and American spheres, about the social control of some new application called social credit in China, or the development of a new central bank virtual currency that will distort the international financial system, and about how all our information, big data, is used in an intelligent way, smart data, especially by data brokers and technology companies with national products superior to some European countries, to be used by spin doctors of political parties and influence or change the vote by hawking our democracies. However, I consider that I have very little time, and I wanted to take advantage of showing a single example, also trying not to coincide. I am unaware of the rest of the topics in this forum, and I have chosen to reflect my concern about the metaverse or metaverses that are being creating, and some are already being used. In the last decade, what is the metaverse? Is, I think, the first question. Numerous applications have been developed to make possible the transition to reduction that will involve the creation of the interoperable metaverses of different companies. A new digital world developed in Web 3.0 is not the two-dimensional version we are using today. It is a new 3D dimension. There will be multiple decentralized metaverses, so it will be essential that these shared online spaces are interoperable and portable. Persistent, synchronous, and totally immersive space. Our physical reality will merge with the digital universe. We can have our digital twin in the social, family, and work sphere as an avatar. It can become an extension of reality, or at least the continuous intertwining of the physical and digital worlds. And the metaverse will transform almost every sector and create new disruptive jobs such as Minecraft gardener, avatar trainer, or professional e-sport player. We can socialize, play, shop in stores, do business, work, train, and attend concerts with other people, or at least with their avatars, with the feeling of being present in the space. While the metaverse or multiple metaverses are under construction, million-dollar transactions are already underway. Some of these spaces have been sold for more than $1 million. Thus, space, neighborhoods, and territories are purchases in the virtual world. Sometimes there are copies of the real world to be used, for example, for commercial purposes. They already operate in the virtual environments of spaces of numerous brands, artists, media, banks, concerts, museums, etc. Professionals in many sectors will have to readapt their businesses and increase their knowledge in this type of markets. Legal operators in tension with large technology companies will have to reach agreements on the protocols and regulation of these technologies, and financial institutions will have to find the safe ways to support smart contracts for the change of goods and services on these platforms. Advertisers will have migrated in a few years from billboards to digital media and now to metaverses. Marketing, communication, branding professional will pay attention to the metaverse because it will be another revolution of the market, just as social networks were at the time, and make gamified experiences with the effect wow. We could also frame within the concept of metapolitics the interest by various governments, administrations, institutions, organizations, and politicians for the metaverse. All of them are already using it, including embassies. As many speeches will be given as specific citizens what to listen to them, and even address local and specific problems that make their consumption an immersive and belonging experience. I can think of a lot of questions, some of which I show on the screen as a sample in relation to the use of the metaverse in these spaces. For example, how will the differing opinions, the multiple vision of what surrounds us be integrated, and what happens to choose disruptive territories or sovereignties is this core in reality, such as West Band or Taiwan, to give an example? Will this metaverse further fragment our sense of shared reality? Will it allow us to share interbranch of unrelated bubbles? How will this virtual space be governed? A lot of questions, but the metaverse will allow the device we use to, for example, unjustified and discriminatory reductions in rights and obligations, protect the intellectual and industrial property rights, taxes, for example, lower rates for the state. The metaverse can become the perfect target for hacked cyber attacks, avatars, or biometric data. Even could the avatar that has our voice and image supplant us, NFT theft, economic fraud, and many other crimes. And marketing, communication, and branding professionals will be able to analyze in a complete way all the data of same user, unless on one platform through smart data. Interpret our facial and body expressions so that our avatar in the metaverse can recreate in real time our movements, mood, interests, or if I am bored, and the environment, people with whom we are interacting, or businesses in which we are shopping, can perceive how we feel through multiple tools, sensor cameras, headphones, inertial measurement units, records that map and locate X person, and along, etc. Allow you to know if you are in a bad mood today, what type of shirts you have preference for, which advertising scenes arouse the most interest, how often you buy jeans, how much money you are willing to spend on a concert or a trip, what kind of news you take longer to read, what protects or social demands monopolize your attention, etc. For example, virtual or reality glasses extract information for iris variations, and the control that interface with the metaverse reveal postural changes, allowing emotional response to be analyzed. Citizens will be even more exposed, since platform will analyze where we go, what we see, what we spend on. Metaverses are forms of commodification or metadata and its analysis through artificial intelligence and algorithms with millimeter precision. Our biases will be sharpened, the population will be polarized, we will try to guide the content we see, and they will censor those that they consider inconvenient to their interest. A life of crystal. No? Another problem is if the virtual identity or psychographics created is not correct. We don't know what data seeks about us. The profiling might not fit reality. Who will we deal with missing information in these new spaces? How will radicalization be avoided? And other multiple things. They can publish those thousands and emit and certain specific personality types adapted to the fears, needs, states, emotion, etc. of people to win an election. We will be hated, reigns who vote. These are two works in which I have gone much deeper into these issues. If you are interested, thank you a lot. I am at your disposal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this interesting paper, for this interesting exposition. Okay, now our next speaker is Jedrzej Skrzypczak. Sorry for my pronunciation of Polish. The title of his intervention is The Digital Divide from the Human Rights Perspective, Case of Poland on the European Background.
Okay. Can you help me and open my presentation, or should I do it?
Just a minute.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much. Once again, Oscar, thank you very much for organizing this session with this webinar, because this is a next common project and cooperation between Adam Mickiewicz University and, of course, University of Carlos III in Madrid. So my topic is the digital divide from the human rights perspective. I would like to focus on Poland, a case of Poland, and EU background. So let's go. Let's start from the definition of these two terms, digital exclusion and digital inequality. We can find even official definition of digital exclusion. Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in 2001 proposed such a version of this definition. This is digital exclusion is a phenomenon of social inequalities between individuals, households, enterprises, and regions at the social economic development level related to access to information and communication technologies, and their use in the sphere of activity. However, our seminar is called Digital Inequality. So the question is, this is the same term or we can find some differences? So we can find such definition of digital inequalities: the disparities in knowledge and ability of using digital and information technology among individuals with different demographics, socio-economic backgrounds, and digital and information technology experience and competencies. So more or less, we can say that this is the same problem and same challenge. So we can find also several types, several levels of digital exclusion. Type 1, type first, we can say that this is a hard exclusion. Hard exclusion on the background of access. So it means that in this situation, we have lack of access to devices, software, network, services, lack of equipments, computers, etc. The reason of such kind of exclusion could be or is rather economic, however also geographic, in the sense that, for example, on the rural area, there is a lack of such infrastructure. And however, we have the second type of exclusion, soft exclusion. Maybe this kind of exclusion is more dangerous, as I can prove in the next later. You can see on my slides. So it means that this is a competency exclusion, inability to acquire, maintain, or update IT skills. So, on this field, we can find motivational exclusion. It means that this kind of exclusion refers to the mental barriers. It's about of lack of motivation, of willingness to get or to use modern technology. Why? Because for such people, this is not necessary to life. They don't find any differences between analog and digital world. So the roots or reasons of digital inequalities, of course, in both type, which I mentioned on the previous slides, there are quite obvious: income, education, household size and type, age, gender, racial and linguistic backgrounds, and of course location. So let's go further. Concept of digital divide as a human rights. So maybe let's start that according to the United States, human rights are inherent to all human beings, regardless of their status. Human rights include freedom from slavery and torture, the right to life and liberty, the right to work and education, freedom of opinion and expression, and equality and non-discrimination. Human rights include covenants on civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. Given the central role that the internet plays in today's digital age in gaining access to resources, job, health, care, and education, among others, universal access to broadband internet clearly falls within the realm of human rights. Consistent with the approach, we see that around the world, access to high-speed internet is increasingly seen not just as a convenience, but as a necessity, and more recently as a human rights. So, with a growing importance on various digital services, it seems that the digital divide has become one of the human rights violations. It became evident and very painful during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, in the time when all world was in the digital space. So, in this time, we saw many examples of this violation. So we can say that digital divide. This is a case of human rights violation. So this is a data from EU, and you can see here a comparison between 2016 and 2021. And here on the slide you can see internet access of household, and the level is more on the more than 90%. Of course, not in every country. On the top, we have such countries like, for example, Luxembourg. On the end of this list, we can find Bulgaria, for example. However, the average level is about 90%, and so we can find also a big step forward from since 2016 2021, what you can see on this slide. So yeah, this is kind of a summary that by 2021 the share of EU's households with internet access had risen to 92%, some 20 percentage points higher than in 2011, for example. In 2011, so decade area, it was 72%. Broadband internet access was used by 90% of households in the EU in 2021. So 25 percentage points higher than in 2011. The proportion of individual age 16 to 74 in the EU who ordered or bought goods of services over the internet for private use. So it means that in fact the way of using internet to the normal typical life stood at 67% in 2021, 16 percentage points higher than in 2016. In 2016 it was 51. Okay, and let's jump to the Poland, and you can see some data from Poland, data from 2020. In 2020, almost 82% of Poles use the internet at least once a week. 90% of households had access to the internet. The groups most digitally excluded today, despite the decrease in the scale of these proportions, are and this is rather obvious, oldest people, people with a low level of education, and people with a better financial situation. More than half of the people, 55% who have never used the internet live in rural areas. This is next evidence that the geographic location is also very important. Why? Because we discuss about fiber connections of internet, for example. Motivational exclusion remains the critical form of digital exclusion that determines not using the internet. Nearly 66% of people who do not use the internet justify it as a lack of need, even though depending on the social demographic group, 20 to 45% of them have a device at home and access to the internet. Exclusion due to the physical inability to access the internet is already a marginal problem in Poland. I mean about to access to the internet, so they then don't have even possibilities of such access. An important exclusion area is the limited available of lines with adequate capacity. At the end of 2020, almost 68% of households had a fixed broadband connection. Okay, so let's time for conclusions or maybe recommendations. Digital inclusions must be directed at well-defined social goals. Providing access to the network itself does not mean the people previously disconnected from it will start using it in the absence of motivation. So it seems that the big challenge here now is the motivation of using digital technology. The most appropriate form of combating the key aspect of digital exclusion, motivational exclusion, is to build the need to use the internet around broader life motivations. So it is especially very important when, for example, many public services are only on this digital way or platform. So this is it seems that the biggest challenge for society is the battle with the way of human thinking, because as we saw based on this research in Europe and in Poland, this is not the access to the internet. This is not rather the problem, the challenge. Problem is rather the as I mentioned, motivational exclusion. So it means that problem with human brain and human motivations of using the internet. Of course, maybe some of them think that many of dangerous digital dangerous it could be the reason why they decided to cut this connection with internet. However, it seems that this is a big challenge, because as I tried to show that in fact it could be understanding as a human rights in the contemporary world. So thank you very much for your attention, and so once again, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for this exposition. It is in the core of this webinar, the idea of the new minorities by the digital, by the net. Are there any new minorities by the net? Is a very interesting question. We can discuss later. Okay, our next speaker is Jesús Mora from the University of Valencia. His intervention will be titled as Algorithm, Status Hierarchies, and Discrimination in a Perfect Lack Egalitarianism. Jesús, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Oscar. I am trying to share my presentation. You can see it now, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So most debates, the two presentations from this webinar we have already seen. Lots of debates around digital inequalities, rightfully so, discuss current instances of algorithmic discrimination and privacy violations. But here I want to take a different approach and see how algorithms would perform in ideal environments. and in particular in what I will refer to as perfect black egalitarian societies. So my goal is to isolate the tool, algorithms, from its use in a world full of injustices like ours, and see how it would perform in terms of important values aside from fairness, like most relevantly respect and self-respect. So I would like to start by providing a definition of lack egalitarianism. So lack egalitarianism has two core ideas. First, lack egalitarians believe that a society is just when all individuals have equal welfare, opportunities, capabilities, or resources. So for lack egalitarians, justice demands the equal distribution of something. And second, lack egalitarians believe that a distribution is equal when people's welfare, resources, opportunities, or capabilities do not reflect anything but their own choices. So one of the main ideas of lack egalitarianism and one of its main distinctive theoretical approaches is that all inequalities that are attributable to lack are unfair, and therefore the state should redistribute resources to correct those inequalities. These include inequalities that arise from circumstances like our gender, skin color, ethnicity, sexual orientation, social class and origin, and talent and skill. Precisely the fact that we cannot claim responsibility for our talent and skill is crucial for what I want to talk about here today. So according to lack egalitarians, since our talents are a function of our genes, of our genetic lack, and the social environment we grew up in, and we cannot claim responsibility for neither of those, all inequalities that reflect differences in talent are unfair. Okay, so once we have this theoretical background of lack egalitarianism, I want to ask the following question, which is, how could algorithms contribute to achieve a perfect lack egalitarianism or an ideal lack egalitarianism? So the first thing to bear in mind is that lack egalitarians consider the question of responsibility fundamental when assigning public benefits. This means simply that if you are in a bad situation because you made poor choices, you are not as entitled to public assistance as if you are in a bad situation as a consequence of bad luck. Therefore, in a lack egalitarian society, state authorities would need to know, in the words of Joanna Firth, how far each citizen is responsible for having the level of resources, capabilities, opportunities, or welfare that they do. And algorithmic technologies could be very relevant in this regard, because algorithmic technologies allow public agencies to collect and process vast quantities of digital data from all available sources, and they also allow state authorities to detect patterns in data that human officers could never trace. So in this way, algorithmic technologies could guide state authorities in better tracking the distinction between choice and circumstance that is so important for lack egalitarians, and therefore channel public assistance to those individuals that are truly in a bad situation without deserving it. And to see this more clearly, I think we can draw important lessons from the case of unemployment benefits. So first, we need to consider that a person can be unemployed as a consequence of two reasons or a mixture of these two reasons. So first, people can be unemployed as a consequence of undesired disadvantage, which include people whose talents are not attractive enough for employers. And second, people can be also unemployed because they made irresponsible choices. They didn't make an effort to get training, or they simply preferred to be idle, or they were too indolent to actively look for employment. So for benefits to be assigned fairly, state authorities in a like egalitarian society would have to know how much of an individual's unemployment situation owes to each of these two categories. Since for like egalitarians, as I was saying before, it is justified to be off work through disability or lack of talent, but it's not just justified to be unemployed as a consequence of a simple personal choice to be idle. So the way this could work by means of algorithmic technologies is the following. Factors deriving from unfair disadvantage on the one hand, and factors deriving from personal choice on the other, could be pooled in an algorithm that assigns individuals a lack responsibility score, responsibility score, on the basis of which state authorities would determine each individual's entitlement to compensation. So, assuming first that the algorithm relies on vast amounts of information about people's talent that human officers could never process efficiently, and second, that in a like egalitarian society, our ability to find a job is defined exclusively on the basis of our talent, then algorithmic technologies could better track the influence of undesired disadvantage in each individual situation of unemployment, and therefore help state authorities assign unemployment benefits more fairly. So in this regard, algorithmic technologies would be helpful to achieve equality and would be desirable, and their use would be desirable. But I want to contend here that no matter how useful algorithms are in terms of fairness, they are also harmful to two other important values, which are respect and self-respect. And the way to understand this is to think about the issue of shameful revelation. This is an idea by philosopher Jonathan Wolff. He defines shameful revelation as requiring people to disclose information about themselves that they find embarrassing, and that for the reason that they find this information embarrassing, it is information that they wish other people didn't know. So according to Wolff, the problem here is that collecting the type of information that we need to implement a fairness-focused approach like egalitarianism demands shameful revelation from the unemployed. Let us recall that in order to be awarded unemployment benefits in a like egalitarian society, someone needs to be unemployed not because of responsible choices, but because of undesired disadvantage, like deficient talent. And the consequence of this is that claiming unemployment benefits would require from unemployment claimants admitting in front of state authorities that they are not talented enough to be productive. And for Wolff, this would require claimants to recognize their inferiority in public, which he stresses would remove every last shred of dignity from unemployment claimants. And to me, this creates a horrible dilemma for unemployment claimants, which is either you accept material deprivation and you refuse unemployment benefits, or you accept to recognize your inferiority in public in order to avoid material disadvantage. According to another philosopher, Elizabeth Anderson, this makes redistributive demands depend on people declaring their inferiority and not their equality to others. So the question I want to press here is, how would the use of algorithms affect shameful revelation in a perfect like egalitarian society? And I think there are reasons why we can presume that it would make the problem worse, that algorithms would make the problem worse. Why? So first we need to think about the two most important virtues commonly attributed to algorithms. First, algorithms are presumed to be unbiased. Unlike humans, who often let personal considerations affect policy execution, algorithms intendedly always decide on the basis of technical and objective criteria. And this would be even more so in a like egalitarian society that tries to eliminate prejudices on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender, and so on and so on. And second, algorithms are commonly preferred because they present their results in a numerical and logical fashion. And this allows state authorities to simplify reality in decision making. So probably because of these two characteristics, algorithms and their classifications, the classifications they bring about are very hard to challenge. They are, when used in decision making and when used in public policy, they are never regarded as just one piece of information among many. Instead, they usually come to embody truth and reality. They are not just one tool among many to search for the truth or to try to understand reality. They come to embody truth and reality, as O'Neill and Henman say. So going back to shameful revelation, being categorized as inferior in talent may be hurtful enough, but I invite you to presume that when these categorizations are widely perceived as objective and aside from human error, because they are the result of algorithmic data collecting and processing, this damage to respect and self-respect can be worse, can be enlarged. So the problem is that by defining individuals entirely through the scores that arise from their data, algorithms simplify reality and simplify the complex nature of human beings in order to rank them as superior or inferior only across one variable, like in our case can be talent. So before finishing, from this ideal situation of a like egalitarian society. Oh, the slide is not loading in my screen, but now, okay. So from this this ideal situation of like egalitarianism, I think we can extract three important lessons for public policy in the real world. First is that even in a scenario where algorithms need not reproduce human prejudice on the basis of skin color, gender, class, ethnicity, etc., they can still strange classifications and categories of human beings that may harm respect and self-respect. So the case of like egalitarianism recommends considering how implementing public policy through algorithmic technologies can affect respect and self-respect. Second, another important lesson from like egalitarianism is that the design of public policies should contemplate how citizens perceive those policies and their implementations and the tools we use for their implementation. So no matter how efficient or how fair algorithmic classifications may be, they can be detrimental for public policy when they label citizens as inferior or superior to others in areas like their talent and skill. And the third lesson is that even if algorithms are better suited to deliver fairness, maybe other means for data collection and information are less intrusive and less rigid in their judgment, and therefore we should prefer them in some cases. The thing here is that fraud is still very marginal in current societies. So even if less technically developed means are less fair than algorithms in, for example, assigning unemployment benefits, they may prevent harm to values like respect and self-respect, and therefore be sometimes preferable. So to conclude, yes, current societies are full of instances of unfairness that sometimes lead to algorithms enlarging inequalities because they don't redress but reproduce those injustices. But the case of like egalitarianism suggests that even under more just conditions, we should be wary of how categorizing people on the basis of numerical criteria can hurt respect and self-respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jesús, for this inspiring intervention, for this inspiring speech about the fears on algorithms, that it's a topic on digital inequalities. And okay, our next speaker will be Bartosz Hordecki. Sorry for my pronunciation in Polish, from Mickiewicz University in Poznan. And the title of his intervention will be In Search of Linguistic Justice, Ukrainian Language in the Polish Electronic Media Sphere after 24th February 2022. Now is your turn.
Okay, thank you very much for this introduction. I'm trying to open my presentation, but still the last one is open. Okay. I must say it's, I don't know how, okay. Thank you very much for this help. Yes, so it's a great pleasure and honor to be here and to present some information about my topic. Well, it will be about how the war context influences the situation of equalities and equalities in electronic sphere, especially in the field of linguistic justice. And I would like to start with a quotation taken from Will Kimlicka and Alan Patten. This quotation was delivered at the beginning of the 21st century, but it's really intriguing if we talk about the role of Central and Eastern Europe in showing some problems in equalizing or de-equalizing linguistic sphere. So let's start with this quotation. So for some theorists in the West, reflection on linguistic diversity was stimulated by the experience of Eastern Europe after 1989. Optimistic assumptions about the rapid spread of liberal democracy were shattered by the outbreak of ethnic conflicts, many of them along linguistic lines. Countries that had accorded a range of minority language rights, at least on paper, under the communist regime, often shifted to a policy of official monolingualism, and linguistic minorities responded with a range of mobilizations from peaceful protest to violent secession. Yes, and this quotation delivered by scholars representing the Anglo-Saxon world, this quotation is true, but only partially true. And it is also important to notice that they have indicated the situation which was after 1989, and after that we've got some steps to develop our theory about language inequalities and how to change the situation. And it was at the time of rapid assumptions done by international organizations in this sphere, especially in Europe. Yes, and in this flow, we've got what was proposed, for example, by Kimlicka and Patten, and also by Philippe Van Parijs in the 21st century. And it's really important what was proposed by them, because we've got just a reflection on linguistic rights and how important they are in the process of including people into real communication, also on the internet. And a lot of work was done. So, for example, we've got a lot of reflection on tolerance-oriented language rights, promotion-oriented language rights. Yes, there was a huge discussion why this division is not sufficient enough. Yes, so there was a lot of discussing about the norm and accommodation approach, the official approach, which is better in designing language policies and their inclusive effects. Yes, so we've got plenty of debating about those issues. Yes, and they are very important, and we made a huge progress in the field. Yes, but the situation of this war in Ukraine, so again, we are in Central and Eastern Europe, yes, so this situation shows us that is not enough, yes. So not enough is also to follow Philippe Van Parijs and his famous linguistic justice for Europe and for the world, yes, because what was discussed by him a few years ago was the fact that we need to find the right balance between searching for lingua franca among all of us, which according to him should be English, just because it's a matter of fact that it's spreading around the world is the most vivid and the most rapid and the most beneficial. But what is also important, if we talk about Pérez, he pointed out also that we should focus also on the fact that some languages are endangered, yes, and we should create a proper environment just to protect this linguistic diversity. And according to him, the principle of territoriality is the most important here. So it means that we should allow some linguistic communities to protect their languages within the boundary of their territories, yes, and also invest in English, yes. So both goals are proposed here, yes. And what I want to show today during this short presentation is that this approach, this whole discussion briefly introduced by me, is not enough to understand what is just, what is fair and unfair in the context of this Russian intervention in Ukraine, yes? Because when we are starting to discuss this topic, we could start, for example, with talking about the fact that Ukraine has a very Ukrainian-oriented language policy nowadays. Yes, so they've got the law from 2019, and this law is strictly oriented on promoting Ukrainian language. I remember a moment when I was participating in the scientific seminar in Ottawa, yes, and when I was presenting those stipulations which we have in Ukrainian law about protecting Ukrainian language, yes, and it sounds so nationalistic what was proposed by Ukrainians that one of the participants just shouted, "Oh Jesus!" Yes, because it sounds like that, yes, but if we want to understand why this Ukrainian approach to language is so strict, yes, we need to understand the whole context. And in this context, I would also like to show you why it is so in Poland now that plenty of electronic media invest a lot of effort in protecting and supporting Ukrainian language, even if we know that the same situation cannot be done in Ukraine. Yes, so what I'm suggesting here and what I want to support during my presentation is to show you that in this Central and European context, it is important to think about language policies, about language equalities, about language inclusion. Also in this electronic context, we should think about this in a broader context of this Russian neo-imperialism. Yes, without remembering about this neo-imperialism of the Russian Federation, we are not able to understand and we are not able to establish what is fair or unfair in this sphere, yes? But the real phenomenon I would like to focus on today is a very interesting fact that after 24th of February 2022, yes, it is a matter of fact that Polish electronic media are trying to meet the demand of the Ukrainian-speaking audience. Their activity manifests primarily in producing various content in Ukrainian. This offer concerns a wide range of topics, local, regional, national, international, or global, yes? And it's a real phenomenon, yes? It's done on a massive scale, yes? And when you are Googling or just visiting Polish internet sphere nowadays, yes, especially those main portals, yes, you are able to easily find a lot of content in Ukrainian language, apart from Polish language, yes, and we've got even the description that the Polish internet has become double language after February 2022. Yes, so we've got the content in Polish and we've got the content in Ukrainian. Yes, so here we've got the examples. Yes, so a lot of electronic players, they have invested a lot of money in creating this Ukrainian language content. We've got even portals in this language, but done by the Polish journalists and by the Polish companies. Yes. And I think it's a really interesting phenomenon to discuss it in terms of linguistic justice. as the title of my presentation suggests. And the crucial question we have here, yes, and this is a question which needs further investigation from my side, yes, and I'm at the threshold of a long-lasting project in this respect, yes. The crucial problem is, does the introduction of Ukrainian in the Polish electronic media sphere manifest a theoretically embedded and coherent concept of linguistic justice? And if so, what are the intellectual sources of this concept? What are its main principles? How do they interfere with the most popular approaches to linguistic justice? What is their contribution to contemporary theoretical and practical discourses on achieving this quality or value? Yes, so these are the main questions, yes, and to have a real answer to them, yes, I need to make a lot of interviews with people who are producing this content, yes, and I'm on the threshold of doing this. But what I'm able to give you today is a very overall situation and some effects which are produced by the fact that we've got such a lot of Ukrainian content in contemporary electronic Polish media, internet Polish media. So what we can see for today, and I will be asking about the perception of those opportunities, my interlocutors, yes, what we can see today is that we've got some opportunities connected with the fact that this Ukrainian language is entering more and more vividly this Polish electronic sphere. So it is a matter of fact that Polish electronic media, by introducing Ukrainian content to them, show us that they think about Ukrainian refugees' language rights, that they participate in showing Ukrainian refugees hospitality and support. We are full of hospitality and support to Ukrainians. So it's a good trigger to promote, to disseminate the opinion among Polish audiences about the urgent need for support and openness toward Ukrainian refugees. Yes, so it's a good tool for making some education about the Polish audience. So it's good to show the solidarity with Ukrainians. So it's also a matter of protest against Russian aggression and resist the Russian propaganda's narrative on the non-existence of the Ukrainian nation and the Ukrainian language. Yes, because it's a matter of fact that it was one of the main reasons given by Putin to invade Ukraine, that Ukrainians only think that they've got their own language, but it's not a real language, but it's just a dialect of a Russian language. And thinking about having their own language, Ukrainians give proofs that they are fascists and nationalists, and that's why the Russian army should invade. Yes, so if we have this content in Polish electronic media in Ukrainian, it's just to support this Ukrainian language in this moment of testing the strength of this language by the Russian aggression. So this electronic content I'm talking about in Ukrainian, but in Polish electronic media, stand against the Russian Federation's neo-imperial language policy, yes, and this is the core of this justice discourse on justice, which is developed in this sphere by the Polish electronic media. This also helps in overcoming the difficult legacy of the Polish-Ukrainian past and focusing on thinking about the Polish-Ukrainian future, because each discourse we have about justice and about fairness and about equality should be not ignoring the past. Yes, we need to look at the past, yes, and we need to reconcile the past, and after that we can build a new, more inclusive relations between nations. And another opportunity is that this electronic discourse in Ukrainian but in Polish internet media sphere exemplifies how the rights of the Polish-speaking community in Ukraine can be supported in the future, yes, because the war will end, yes, and now after the end of the war, we've got a question, what will be further in Ukraine, because we've got a Polish minority in Ukraine. Yes, so maybe we are just elaborating a pattern, a model which can be implemented in Ukraine in the future. So I'm coming to the end. Yes, here we've got challenges. Yes, because this situation that we've got this content in Ukrainian, which is very common now in Polish on the Polish internet. Yes, has a situation is a situation which produces also challenges. Yes, so. The point is that we've got a lot of content in Ukrainian, but this content is very often not of a very good quality, yes? So on a symbolic level, it's wonderful, yes? Because we are supporting Ukrainians who are fighting for the right reason, yes? But if we talk about the quality, well, the Polish electronic media do not deliver in-depth and high-quality content in Ukrainian, prepare very general information in Ukrainian, not very helpful for Ukrainians in resolving their everyday problems. Yes, so the content is often borrowed in Ukraine. This content in Ukrainian from abroad. The problem is who should subsidize, who should pay for this content in Ukraine. Yes, because the whole action I'm talking about is developed bottom up, yes, but now the discussion has started. Well, maybe it's not an action which should be done bottom up, but rather supported by the Polish government. Yes, so why should only those electronic media should fight for Ukrainian language? Yes, there is also a room for support from the Polish government. And the problem, the last one I would like to mention of xenophobia. Yes, so sometimes this content in Ukrainian is interpreted by some parts of the Polish society as something what is going too far, yes, and we've got even this very nationalistic, xenophobic action, Stop the Ukrainization of Poland, which is used by the Russian propaganda, for example, to spread the rumor that there will be two official languages in Poland, which are Polish and Ukrainian, yes, so the whole situation is changing, the language regime is changing, and the constitution will be changed. Yes, so we've got also the situation of creating fakes about the whole situation, and this is a situation, the situation of creating these tensions between Ukrainians and Poles. Yes, so there are plenty of questions here. Yes, and going to the very end. Yes, I would like to summarize. Yes, and to show you that what we have now is a very spontaneous response. It is based on a feeling of justice, on a feeling of fairness, which we can observe in Polish electronic media. They want to be inclusive because to Ukrainians because they feel it's right and it's important, yes, and they interpret the audiences as also feeling in that way. So we've got a lot of work done on a symbolic level, yes, symbolic meaning of taking care about a different language is developed, and it's really precious and important, yes. But if we talk about those problems on a very practical level, yes, we should say that this action helps moderately in increasing cooperative justice for Ukrainian refugees in Poland, because this content is not very helpful, as I said. It's too general and not of a very high quality, and helps moderately in increasing distributive justice for Ukrainian refugees in Poland, which is connected with receiving a good work and so on. Yes. So what we have now, we've got a very interesting impulse. Yes, but for sure we should have a very long-lasting and in-depth debate about how to create a linguistic justice in electronic sphere towards Ukrainian language in the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. It was a very interesting presentation on linguistic rights from different minorities in time of war in different countries. This is a current issue for human rights agenda. And now the next speaker will be me. I will present a paper on hate speech online with persons with disabilities. My name is Oscar Pérez de la Fuente. I am associate professor in Carlos III University of Madrid. I would like to explain that hate speech, in my approach, has three levels. The first level is the value level. In this case, the value level is ableism, or the ideologies of normality. This means the value level in the case of women is misogyny or patriarchalism, or in the case of races is biological racism. This means is the value, the ideological level. There is a second level that is the hierarchical level. That means there is a level in which minority members are considered inferior. In my approach, this is another level. It is the hierarchical level, and in all the hate speech, there is level of someone considered inferior, and there is a third level. That it's the practical level, that it's the specific manifestation of hate. In one cases could be hate crimes, in other cases could be hate speech, in other cases could be hate actions motivated by hate. And my presentation today will consist on explaining the online hate speech, in which specific actions consist of. Okay, first we have the ideology. All human beings are equal, have equal dignity according to the chapter of human rights. The universal chapter of human rights. The equal dignity is one of the values of legitimacy in our democracies. However, there is an ideology of normality. There is the ableism that establishes who is normal and who is not normal. And for people with disabilities, this has a consequence that they are considered inferiors. The ideology is the ideology of normality that establish who is adapted to the environment, who has no problems with developing a personal project of life, and who has these problems of adaptation. Okay, of course, this value element is connected with the hierarchical element, and the second element is it has the consequence that treat human beings, consider human beings as inferior. Yes, and this view that consider human beings as inferior motivate hate speech, motivates hate crimes. For example, we have certain regulations of the International Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that want to restrict any distinction, exclusion, or restriction in base of disability. And they want to promote equal rights. For example, in the Spanish regulation, it is prohibited the harassment to the persons with disability, and in the United Kingdom regulation, it's also included disability as a term in which it's considered as one of the motives for the Crime and Disorder Act. It's considered sexism, racism, and ableism. Okay, in different language, there are different terms in order to refer the people with disabilities. Disability has different manifestations. For example, the defenders of the persons with disability talk about functional diversity instead of persons with disability. We are all diverse functionally. And the idea is that in different language we have different words as retard, cripple, grim, Mongol, etc. This is terms of hate speech. But we are going to see in this presentation different specific actions of hate speech like trolling, flaming, rape, cyberbullying, cyberstalking, swatting, online impersonation, doxing, online sexual solicitation, etc. For example, trolling. Provoke or offend participants in discussion or to divert conversation into pointless argument that are particularly common in the forums of group experience social inequality. We know that trolling is common on the net. However, it's more common with people, with certain groups of people with disabilities. Or, for example, cyberbullying, intentional online act via electronic media to harm, embarrass, or humiliate another person. This is quite common in the case of persons with disabilities. Or cyberstalking, use information communications technology to harass one or more individuals. There is another case, it is swatting, making a false report to the police in order to get them to visit a victim, or impersonation, assuming a false identity in order to mislead another or gain improper benefit. Okay, some of these actions are in themselves crimes. Another actions are not crimes, are only actions morally wrong. For example, doxing involves publishing private information such as home address, employer, or phone number. It's usually for women as a misogynist action, or also racist, but also is included for people with disabilities. And sexual solicitation of disabled women and children, it happened when this person appears to be in certain websites, and certain people ask for sexual favors to these women and children with disabilities. I would like to make one reflection here, that it's something interesting in the doctrine, in which they say that for persons with disability, online, the net could be a good tool in order to develop a sexual life or a relationship life, a social life. Could be a good tool, but also it has several dangers. And this is one of the dangers, because these people is especially vulnerable. Okay, my conclusions is that we have to distinguish between people with disabilities and people without disabilities. We have to distinguish situations in real life, or situations offline, and situations online. And I think there are certain situations online with the people with disabilities that make this collective especially vulnerable to certain actions as harassment, stalking, bullying, and other actions that we have seen. And we have to understand that people with disabilities could be a minority offline, but also is a specific minority online. This is an ongoing research, and I would like to arrive to more specific conclusions in all my research, but I think this is a very interesting topic for a webinar on digital inequalities. Thank you very much. And now the next speaker will be Monika Jablonska and Piotr Jablonski. The title of their speech will be Technological Determinism of Generation C and Online Exclusion. Okay, this is your turn.
Okay, first of all, we would like to thank you for inviting us to this webinar. We hope that our research and its results will be interesting to you. So, on the example of our research, we will talk about another side of digital exclusion. And in our research, we focused on the issue of digital exclusion and attempt to answer the question of whether in the area of the 21st century digital exclusion can affect the generation raised in the spirit of technological determinism, Generation C. And if so, what are its contemporary phases and what consequences it entails? And the results presented here are an excerpt from a border study focusing on the measurement of competence in the area of critical analysis of media communication and its ongoing research. It expected that from Generation C and our research group, it's expected that appropriately for the peculiarities of a society whose main stages of the secondary socialization process were centered around technology and unrestricted exposure to information online, it will easily navigate the depths of commonly prevailing information access. Maybe I will not read you all of the definition that we used, but I would like to emphasize that our research was focused on only one of the area of media and literacy competence, a critical analysis of media broadcast. And it was most important for us because we think that we can't check all of the competences and from media competences, and we can't measure all of that. So we focused only on the one. And the critical analysis of media broadcast covered 8 areas in our research, and it was verification of information sources, visual manipulation of data, manipulation and persuasion in the media broadcast, filter bubble, unconscious sharing of personal data, advertising and information content, clickbaits, and fake news. Now I will quickly show you, tell you about the method and tool research. So the study consisted of 3 stages: metric, questionnaire from questions about the ways and the frequency of using digital media. Second stage, declarative level of competence, and it was self-assessment, survey from 10 questions with a 5-point scale. For example, the question was, what are your online activities and how much time do you spend on each of them? And the third stage was real level of competence, a competency test in the form of an activity, interactive quiz and 8 practical tasks. For the test, we used the Kahoot platform, which contains elements of gamification, which is motivating and more engaging for this age group. And I will tell you a little bit more about our research group later. What was important for us in the study was to keep the logic and consistency of the questions in the self-assessment sheet and the test. Therefore, each question from the previously indicated areas in the self-assessment sheet had its counterpart in the test. So if in the test, in the self-assessment, we ask if they could recognize manipulation in media, then in the third stage of the test, they solve a practical task in recognizing manipulation. Now you can see we divided all users' activities into two groups, passive user and active user. You can see the types of these activities on the slide is posting and commenting on the content on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, making memes, running a blog, photoblog, vlog, original podcast, or watching memes except social media, watching TV, movie series on the internet, watching commercials, watching a video on TikTok, and listening to radio, podcast, audiobooks, browsing Instagram, Facebook, Twitter posts, conducting live broadcasts via streaming platform, creating press materials for professional media broadcast, and other. And here we are, the example of the practical task. I didn't translate it, but we have in the image the alleged Facebook account of Robert Lewandowski, our most famous footballer. Looking at the image, we see a lot of aspects that should draw our attention. Page creation date, profile name, message content, number of fans, or page number change. And they had to select 4 areas that indicate this is a fake social media account. And the second example shows a chart of spending on healthcare in Poland. In the task, the respondents were presented with 3 charts, and their task was to indicate the one of present the data in unmanipulated way. I will only add that all of the examples used in the task were real and came from Polish media. It was important for us to that the respondents received for analysis the messages they had seen or had the opportunity to see. And a little bit about our research group. Our research group consisted of people aged between 18 and 20. They called young adults. So it's a part of Generation C. People studying at the post-primary level and in general high school. People studying in the Wielkopolska voivodeship. And the size of our research group was 355 full-sheet fields. But I have to tell you what I said in the beginning, that it's ongoing research. So we hope to more to improve our research group. Okay, now Peter will tell you a little more about our results.
Okay, so first of all, they had in their test, which consists, as Monica said, in a couple of the groups. First of all, they had a self-assessment. In one of the last questions, we asked them how they feel about how they feel about their media competencies. Do they feel that they are very well with the media competencies or not? In a 5-scale, in a 5-point scale. So, of our 355 respondents and students, the answer that they feel good or very good was given by 74.6%. So, and 55% of them gave that they feel good, and 90.4% give that they feel very good at the media competencies. 20.3% of the whole group said that they feel themselves about sufficient level. because we don't have enough time to present all the results, we decided to present only the results about the 3 most common active users, most common passive users that they selected during the research. So the most common passive activities was, first of all, watching videos on TikTok, YouTube, and Snapchat. This was 97%, over 97% of our respondents give this activity as one of their most common activities. The second one was browsing Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter points, 96%. And the last one was watching TV, movies, series on the internet or VOD platforms. It was a little bit over 92%. And we focus mainly in this presentation on these 3 activities. But as you can see, a lot of the activities and also every activity was over 55% selected by the students. First activity one of the first activities from 3 mentioned earlier was the time spent on watching videos on TikTok, YouTube, and snaps on Snapchat. We gave them also a scale that was graded from less than 1 hour, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, and more than 3 hours per day. All the students decided how many time they spent each day on this specific activity. This is also, as I remember, 97% of all our students that were in the research group. And all the bars shows the grade that they get at the end of the practical test. So as you can see, there isn't any correlations between the time spent on a task like watching videos on TikTok, YouTube, and Snapchat. And there is no correlation with the result that they get on the last at the test on the ending of the all research. So almost every 30% of each group get something around 3 or 4 points in an 8-point test. All the next question, for example, the reviewing posts on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter look very similar. Of course, there are a little bit more fluctuations on the grades. For example, in a group of people watching at least 3 hours per day, there is more people who get a grade on 5 points on an 8-point test, as you should remember. So there we can see that there are some sort of correlations between the time and the grades, but unfortunately they are not very linear, and we cannot see in a whole research group. There is only some local extremes of the time spent by the students. The third question that we would like to present today is also the watching TV, movies, and series on internet or streaming VOD platforms. There is a much more fluctuation than in the previous questions, but still the aggregation of the people is mainly in the half of the scale that they were graded, so from 3 to 5 points. This is also still the middle part of the points, and we cannot see any rising in the higher grades of the test at the end of the research. Right here, at one of the questions, we ask and we try to verify the theoretical and practical observations about how they feel themselves, so self-assessment, and the competence about verification of information sources. In our group, 65% of all the students, all the respondents, specify that they can verify a source of information. 17% of all our students say that they strongly agree with this statement, so they can verify the information sources, and 48% say that they only agree. There is also a little bit more than 28% of the students that they say hard to say. So you can see that their self-assessment is a high grade, so they feel very confident about themselves. Unfortunately, from all those groups, from the group of students that say that they definitely can verify the source of information, 80.6% did not succeed the practical test. So they failed and give the incorrect answer about the question that was presented by Monica. From the second group, so that they just agree, 83% of them gave an incorrect answer. As we can see, it wasn't an easy question, but it's hard to say right there at the specific moment, was it or wasn't these questions. Unfortunately, 82.9% of our respondents gave an incorrect answer. And as the question was raised on the chat, we had at this specific time of the analysis 355 students, so high school students respondents. So it's a little bit more than 350 students. Okay, so as the conclusions, we see that the high frequency of using network media does not ensure a high level of media literacy in reality. Second conclusion, the high self-assessment of media competences of the respondents is not reflected in their actual level of competence. And for today's young media users, one of the reasons for digital exclusion might be a low level of just media literacy.
And we would like to add that today digital exclusion is not only associated with the lack of access to the internet or lack of access to equipment, but to a significant extent it's associated with the lack of appropriate media competences, so as not to fall victim to false information of manipulation. And thank you for your attention. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this interesting exposition. Okay, I think it has been a very fruitful session, but now we have the time for the discussion. And now Professor Jedrzej speaking. Well, sorry for my pronunciation.
Thank you.
Jedrzej,
thank you, Oscar.
It's your turn as discussant.
Yeah, thank you for all speakers for very interesting presentations, and it was very fruitful for me. And however, maybe at the beginning some general remarks. It can be we can metaphorically said that together with development of internet, we discover a new continent. Artificial continent, digital continent. It would seem it is the end of history, and the future will be only excellent. It would be seem that the internet space, it will be perfect space for equality, for example. However, not for inequality, for equality, that it will be the new better word. Artificial, however, better. However, this is and presentations where it was next evidences that idle being doesn't exist. So, for example, we can see on many levels, for example, hate speech. It would seem that internet and the internet and social media will be finally the best area for freedom of speech. In fact, for example, we can observe avalanche of hate speech. However, question about the reasons of such situation, of course, as usually, many reasons. One of them is maybe the non-territoriality of phenomena of the internet. From this point of view, legal action, it is generally limited to a legal system of a given country. I'm sorry for my this point of view of law. However, it seems that it is important. Second potential reason is anonymity in this area. And it appears that law and legal system do not handle the challenges of global space, and it is rather gunslinger speeds that turns out to be essential here. Colonization of this area resembles conquering new areas in times of great geographical discoveries. Next metaphor. So maybe our experiences from history could be a little bit optimistic news for us. At first, why? Because power and violence were prevailing, at only later people tried to introduce effective methods of law enforcement. However, it should be hoped that with time, as in the case of the real world experiences, power will be replaced with powerful arguments based on effective legal mechanisms and partial law. We hope because changes happen very rapidly. And now, if I may, a few questions to the speaker. First of all, first, maybe to Rosa. You described metaverse. So the question is, so this is only one of the market idea for future and market proposal for future, because I don't know, I remember the game, however it was also which we called Second Life. I don't know if our students know what was the Second Life. However, maybe the future of metaverse, it will be the same, because, for example, Elon Musk announced lately that his idea of Neuralink is almost ready, and maybe it will be the new area of next step of developing of digital life. And so one more question about the could you compare this metaverse and analog life, and on this base, could you describe what is the differences between these two words on the base of inequality? So what is the difference between analog and digital inequalities? Jesús, so you thank you very much for your presentation, and you mentioned about 3 public policy lessons, and in conclusion, you underscore the risk of numerically numerically categorizing human beings. However, for example, what does it means in fact? For example, if you think about in practice, we can find in China, for example, now, or something different. Next speaker was Oscar, yeah? Oscar, do you think that digital inequalities in the world of digital world maybe can be only illusory? Because, for example, in digital life, thanks to the bots algorithm, we can change, or we can create the artificial reality. In this sense, that, for example, even you can create your completely different body, of create a completely different image. So do you think that it is possible to help these people with disabilities in such way? And for example, because minority and majority in digital world could be problematic. I don't know, do you agree with me or not? Bartek, thank you very much for this presentation, and my doubts are about the intention of such situation, like, of course, you described in Poland. I mean about the situation of Ukrainian language and on the internet, so that majority of web are available in Ukraine. Do you think this is what is the reason? Solidarity with people from Ukraine, or maybe something what is maybe not so elegant? I mean about money, because we must remember that we have millions of refugees, and this is maybe a good market for these owners of these services. And second question is about the linguistic justice and linguistic policy. Do you think that we can find any governmental action on this field? So my question is about, so do you think that can we find any action by government on this field, or this is rather only grassroots movement, like, for example, help for Ukrainian people? It is generally supported by ordinary persons, not for, of course, government supported. However, this is interesting situation in the contemporary world, that we have in Poland maybe 3 or 4 million of refugees. Okay, maybe 2. It depends on the moment. However, without any camps for refugees. Yes, and last speakers, last presentation by Piotr and Monika Jabłoński. So thank you very much for your presentation and your research, because I remember the essay by Mark Prensky from 2001. And he wrote, the title was Digital Natives and Digital Immigrants. And it would seem that this is, in fact, the true difference of the line of differences between in the digital skills. Your research showed us that even among very young people, the digital skills are on very low level. In fact, you understand the high frequency of using network media does not ensure a high level of media literacy in reality. So it is partially it partially corresponded with my own research from 2019 and 2020, and on the we asked almost 1,000 students from many university centers in Poland about media consumptions. And this research showed that students, so it is more or less the same generation C, yeah, connected with internet. So they are in fact the digital life is the natural life, or maybe the true life. However, your research are very interesting because it shows that the high frequency doesn't mean that this is a high level of skills. So you also mentioned about media literacy. This is the same point. What I think that maybe from kindergarten we should have such calls for every person, because it's true that maybe this is elementary skill in contemporary world. So once again, thank you to all speakers for very fruitful for me, and I hope for other people and audience remarks, research, etc. So once again, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, JJ, for your questions. And now, for in order of intervention, all the speakers should answer the questions of the discussant. The first will be Rosa Ricoy.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, very relevant. Effectively, the metaverse can also be used for training. There are already experiences in this sense, and not only for markets. Many are used to facilitate company maintenance tasks, training for flight engineers, or for personal selection processes. Official embassies have been created. Administrations in the metaverse or in the pandemic itself to enjoy an important part in Spain, such as the Pilar, la Fiesta del Pilar of the city of Zaragoza. But with the metaverse, digital gaps can also increase, and people who cannot have the tools to fully enjoy the metaverse can be left out simply for economic reasons as well. Most people will look for avatars that do not represent normal people, real people. There are studies on mental distortions in this sense, and the reaction towards what is not perfect, the most natural and human, could increase, and the reaction of diversity and minorities. That is why it is very necessary further develop these technologies. Second, for example, work together computer technicians and engineers with specialists in other subjects, for example, lawyers and the judiciary in the implementation of artificial intelligence and algorithms in the administration of justice, also in the metaverse, with tax specialists in tax administration and in smart contracts in these spaces, specialists in fundamental rights who supervise the operation and not allowing the introduction of technologies that are not 100% verifiable because they could increase intolerable discrimination. Our weaknesses could be used to condemn people without a job or of low value, etc. And it's necessary to further develop these technologies. Thank you.
Rosa, I'm sorry, do you remember this game Second Life?
Yes, it's a game and with some representation, for example, concerts, and for example, Berkeley University, I think, is a course. Some professors was introducing some classes through this kind of game, I think.
Yeah, of course. However, now this Second Life, this is the past. Yeah.
Yes.
This is So I think
Minecraft.
that maybe maybe of course metaverse, it will be the big step forward. However, I think that maybe other product of Elon Musk, maybe this is in fact the big challenge, and maybe the true future. Who knows? We will see. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
thank you very much, Rosa. Thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you.
Jesús, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, JJ, and thank you very much for your question. So the thing with numerical classification or categorization of people is that, yes, I think there is a dystopic element in it. So if you think about the example of China, there is a dystopic element, yet it may not be dystopic for the reasons we see now in the real world that make us think it is dystopic, but dystopic nonetheless. So if you think about China, one of the problems that make it dystopic is scaling, what some authors refer to as scaling, which is you get about a score in an algorithm for a certain purpose, and then that is exported to all sorts of different areas. So there was this episode in British TV show Black Mirror, which was called Nosedive, and the star in the episode started getting bad scores, for example, for having a harsh conversation with an employee of a car rental company, so she was not able to rent a car, and then that information was passed to some banking company that made it impossible for her to get a credit, and this created a scale of problems in which wrong information was exported to different areas of life, and that entailed deprivation of rights because of this numerical categorization. That need not happen in all societies, because you could sets very strict standards for the purposes for which the scores of algorithms were used. But still, there would be a very dystopic element of just classifying people according to a number that, I don't know, measures their talent, their skill, or some other area of their life, because maybe that would create something very close to a very fair and efficient society in which everyone is working in that office or in that position that is more adequate for him or for her to work in. But the idea of telling people that they are, for example, useless for the job or of their vocation, or that they are useless, period, is still, and that they are useless because some algorithm has says so, is still very dystopic to me. And even if it was used for very specific purposes, I think we should take into account other things rather than taking into account only the scores people get in certain areas. So, for example, when you think of unemployment, maybe it is also important to have human officers ask people what they want, how they think they can contribute to society, and so on, because otherwise they get the sense, or they could get the sense, that their only value is measured according to a certain score given by a machine. And that can be very appalling for someone to know.
Yeah, thank you very much. Coming back for a minute to the Chinese social credit system, because this is official name of the system. So it is interesting because from Chinese point of view, this is example of equality. However, from our Western point of view, it seems that this is a horrible way of invigilation of people. Yeah, so this is a paradox maybe of this. Thank you very much once again, Jesús. Yeah.
Thank you, JJ.
Well, I think it's my turn.
Yeah, Oscar.
Because you didn't ask your question for yourself. You didn't
Okay.
ask your question for yourself. Then it's my turn.
Yeah. Maybe
okay.
on the end.
Yeah. Okay, then yeah, your question is very interesting. The idea in the artificial reality we have minorities than in the real world, or okay, there is an interesting topic. It's the minorities are the same online and offline. I think this is interesting. Okay, maybe there are new minorities offline. My paper and my approach is that definitely people with disabilities, persons with disabilities, are a vulnerable minority online and offline. They are especially susceptible for being harassed or being stalked or with bullying, also online. However, online world, the net offers different possibilities. The net is quick, is cheap, is sometimes is transparent. Okay, the net has different characteristics, and it is the new digital world. You mentioned the geographical metaphor, no? The idea that the geographical discoverings, now we have a new continent, that it's a digital world, that we are discovering this digital world, no? But if I would like to summarize my paper or my approach is that persons with disabilities are as vulnerable or more vulnerable online than offline, and they are also a minority online. That's the idea. Could be a minority online, but maybe not for the same reasons that offline, maybe not for the same reasons, but they are also in a vulnerable situation online. That's my conclusion.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, next will be Bartosz, the answer of Bartosz.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me a voice, and Jedrzej, thank you very much for two interesting questions. And referring to the first one about intentions, yes, of those media players, yes, of course, it's not only about solidarity, it's also about money, yes, but I think it's about, first of all, it's about assuming that supporting Ukrainians with spreading the content in Ukrainian language is good for branding, is good for those media enterprises as a brand, yes? So you are showing that you are supporting, yes, and on that basis you can develop a story about your company, about your media company. But if we talk about this reference to Ukrainians, yes, indeed, it's also like an anticipation about the possibility of having those people as the audience, but also as your employees in the future. It's connected, for example, with the experience which we have at our faculty. We've got plenty of students from Ukraine and Belarus, yes, and they are young, they are full of energy, they are very active, yes, they know languages which are not very well known in Poland by many people. I mean Russian, Belarusian, and Ukrainian, and they can be involved in the system also of this electronic media, yes, to create a new area of business. So for sure, for now, it is not very prosperous what I'm talking about, yes, because it is rather treated as a kind of a burden, yes. So you need to create the content in Ukrainian, and it's something what takes money, time. It's not very convenient. You don't have a lot of people, professionals who are able to do this, yes. So it is treated as a burden, yes, but it also can be treated as a kind of investment in the future. And that's exactly what I would like to ask those people who are responsible for developing those sections of electronic media in Poland which are in Ukrainian. Yes, so it's a good question for the research. And if we talk about the second question about the government, yes, I said during my presentation that it is mostly, or maybe in 100% bottom-up initiative. Yes, those media players are creating this content, not the government. But does it mean that the Polish government has now its language policy in terms of thinking about Ukrainian language? It has. And if we treat this language policy as a wholeness, as a complex phenomenon which touches plenty of spheres of our life, yes, then we can say that we've got even regulations, yes, which are done in response of the situation which we have after the February 2022. I mean, for example, changes in education law. Yes, because you've got plenty of Ukrainians and and they go to a Polish school, yes, and
exactly,
you need to you need to tackle with the problem, yes, and if so, it is connected in the future with the actions of the government in the field of the media, yes, because it is not possible for today to think about fruitful education without the access to the media system, yes. So the second step, if we want to think about fruitful education, is to create the media sphere. And here we've got a very interesting moment, yes? A moment of bargaining, a moment of negotiation between those media players and the government. It has already started in Poland, yes? The arguments have been risen by the media players, yes? We paid for this for almost a year, yes? Now it's time for the government and for the local authorities, yes, to help us, yes, because we are not able to do this anymore for ourselves, yes. The profits there will be maybe in the future, yes, but now there is a moment of a gap, yes, and we need to be supported because it is congruent with the Polish, let's say, raison d'etre or something like that. Yeah, and this discussion is already happening. And I think it's also a very interesting starting point to ask those people about their point of view, how it should be developed in terms of the media policy and regulating in Poland. Thank you.
Yeah. However, you mentioned about educational system, and yesterday I read some research about the situation in Polish schools, and this is a good examples of this what you presented, because according to the situation and to the numbers of refugees, government and educational authorities decided, okay, kids, Ukrainian kids should go to the Polish school, to the Polish classes, however, not to the additional classes for Ukrainians, to Polish classes. However, problem is with language, yeah. And for example, of course, maybe after the months, situation will be better. However, now, for example, this is a area of conflict with, for example, parents of Polish kids, because, for example, such voices, okay, teacher should explain everything maybe 2, 3, 10 times slowly than for example, between Poles, yeah, because there's a problem with understanding of Polish language. And what is interesting, that decision was, okay, it should, and maybe this is a good idea, to common classes for Polish and Ukrainian kids. However, they don't have, maybe I'm wrong, however, support for linguistic skills. I mean about Polish language for Ukrainian kids, yeah?
Yes, that's really interesting. Yes, but we should say that there are some opportunities and possibilities for the Polish school to create those additional classes for Ukrainian children. Yes, and there are variety of approaches. There is a variety of approaches in this sphere. Yes, so some schools are trying to do separate classes. Some are trying to do mixed classes. Yes, and for sure, it's good to start with this very important notion, yes, that not doing something from the level of the government is to do something, yes. So it's important for now that the government still allows to do a lot at this grassroots level, yes, so on this local level, yes. So we've got the area of a lot of endeavors, yes, and a lot of things are tested, yes, because we haven't been prepared, yes. But still, we can coin some solutions, and we are trying to do this, yes. And this is exactly the point I would like to catch in my presentation and in my research, yes. This is a moment which can be called a window of opportunities. Yes, and for sure, the government is not very helpful here. It must be pointed out, yes. But, well, it does not spoil a lot in this area still, yes. I can imagine a situation when the government would spoil much more than it is done by it now, yes. So it's a moment of chance, but it's a dangerous moment also, yes. And what is very important here is that we can find some models which haven't been tested, or maybe they were tested somewhere, yes, but we can shift them, or we can apply them in our environment, Central European environment, yes, which is very specific because of this Russian Federation neighborhood. Yes, we are living very close to the country, which is very huge, very big, and which has open neo-imperial ambitions, yes, and which is
so
using
Russia is our neighbor, in fact, yeah.
In fact, yes, yes, and it's using aggression and claiming that it's okay, yes. So when we've got such a situation of emergency, yes, it's a very dangerous situation, but also a moment for thinking about something new, about new patterns of collaboration between nations which are endangered by such an aggressive neighbor, yeah? And I think it's a very interesting topic. Yes. So thank you for questions.
Thank you very much, Bartosz. Thank you very much. Maybe, Oscar, let me repeat the full name of Bartosz Hordecki. Bartosz Hordecki. This is correct pronunciation in Polish, okay?
But it's hard to do. I'm Bartek. I'm just Bartek.
Okay.
Okay, well, now Piotr Jablonski and Monika Jablonska have to answer the questions of the day.
Yeah, we have to mention that by the end of December, we plan to test around 1,000 high school students. But our study corresponds to previous research on the...
Over 350, yeah? Because you mentioned your sample was 350, yeah?
Now,
it's,
yeah.
quite good, yeah, yeah.
But we want more. Our study corresponds to previous research on the theoretical level, verifying media competence, of course. But what is innovative in our study is the triangulation of research methods to find out the actual level of media competence, self-assessment with a practical test, and we add gamification elements. And it was crucial to create a tool that would measure exactly what we want. Plenty of research are based only on self-assessment, which don't give measurable level of competences. In Poland, the Education Act clearly indicates that there is no separate subject like media education. While in the core curriculum of the subject, there is a sentence that every teacher is obligated to teach media competences. So they have to do it, but they don't have any tools to do it, because let's check. Sometimes they think that using computer on the classes, running classes, is teaching media competence. It's not. It's only using a computer. So, and that's why it's important for us to test a group that has already gone through the entire process of the core curriculum in the field of media education. That's why we test only the last classes of high schools. And as you mentioned, students have a fairly low level of media competence. Yes, they are. And what's interesting, a kind of pretest for them was joining the Kahoot test platform, like really, where to log to platform, they had to enter the PIN code for the game, which was displayed on the board. So, so it's a nice show.
Maybe your question was were too complicated, because you must know that Piotr is the one of the best IT engineer on our university. So maybe the question were too complicated.
Maybe
sorry, it was a joke.
We try
to about this question, not about the position of Piotr.
Yeah, we selected the platform with a high level of the competence that they need to have. So we choose a platform that many of the students used in the last 2 years, because the Kahoot is a platform that plenty of school and plenty of high schools students had used during their study. It was very popular tool. So we choose something that was already existing and which was well known by them. And even though they had this small, just the pretest to log into the platform, and we thought that it was easy enough. But sometimes it seems
sometimes they had problems.
Sometimes they just had problems. Not everyone, of course. Yeah. So, but we didn't measure the level of this. We didn't remember how exactly. But sometimes it just simply happens, and this is also a nice lesson for us that even if you think that something is very simple,
it's
sometimes
not.
it's not.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you very much. It has been very interesting. I have a question from the chat, which are the collective that it's in my paper, is the focus of my paper. This paper is about persons of disability, hate speech of persons of disability online. However, I am developing an ongoing research also of online misogyny, but it's a parallel research, online misogyny, persons on disability, hate speech online. And if anyone has no questions, someone from the public have any questions, please say something via chat. If there is no questions from the public,
sorry, there are some questions or chat.
Yeah, I have answered my question. There was a question for Priot and Monica. How please specify the number of people surveyed?
Yeah, we answered this during our presentation. It was 355 high school students at the moment of the statistical analysis.
Okay, very well. Okay, well, I would like now to thank all the speakers for these amazing contributions. It was very interesting, very fruitful. This video will be in YouTube. And okay, thank you very much for your contributions. And we expect for your paper at the end of March. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Oscar, one more. Sorry, I'm sorry for interruption. However, maybe we should explain that our idea is that this book will be okay. We are going to apply to Palgrave because they have a special series about digital inequalities, and we hope that it will be possible to publish in this publisher.
Yeah. We are going to submit an editorial plan and an editorial project, and yes, of course, this will.
Please remember that we will have a second session this week, Thursday, at 6 p.m. also.
Yeah, at this in the same website we have the second session of the Digital Inequalities webinar. Thank you for all the attendance.
And thank you very much for Spanish speakers and Oscar, because to all my Polish colleagues, you must know that this week is the week of holidays in Spain, because today is Constitutional Day. Congratulations for my Spanish colleagues, and Thursday will be next day off, so it means that all week is day off.
Yeah, well, okay. Actually, in the time of this webinar was the time of Spain-Morocco in the World Cup. We have a few Spanish attendants in the Spain-Morocco. I don't know the result, but Spain-Morocco in the World Cup, and then we don't have Spanish attendance because all the people are watching this football team. Okay, it fails Spain. I don't know. It seems that fails. Okay. Well, then, see you on Thursday. See you on Thursday, and thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you. Bye.